All right, so today we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But stick with us because it's an important story, and I think there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're talking about Axel Rudakubana.
Okay.
He's 18 years old, and he was just sentenced to a minimum of 52 years in prison, which is the longest sentence ever given to someone his age here in the UK for, a really horrific crime.
Right.
So the big question is, how did a seemingly normal schoolboy end up like this?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to try to figure out.
Okay.
We've got this in-depth article.
Right.
And we're going to use some excerpts from it to kind of piece together what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The goal isn't to sensationalize anything, but to try to understand,
what went wrong here?
Yeah, what went wrong and what this case might tell us about how to protect vulnerable young people.
That's, I think, the key thing here.
Right.
It's not just about the crime itself. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion almost. You can see all these different pieces coming together over years. And, the question isn't just what happened, but why.
Yeah.
What was going on inside of Axel's mind?
Right.
And, were there any points where things could have gone differently?
Exactly.
Like, what were those turning points?
Yeah, so let's rewind all the way back to when Axel was just 13 years old.
Okay.
Sources say that, up until the summer before year 9, he was pretty average, doing okay in school.
Just a normal kid.
Yeah, just blending in.
Right.
But then things took a really sharp turn. He became disruptive in class.
Mm-hmm.
He started getting into arguments with teachers. And here's where it gets really interesting. Barely a month into the new term, he anonymously calls Childline.
Childline.
Yeah, and he admits to having murderous thoughts about a bully and even bringing a knife to school. His lawyer later called this a cry for help.
Wow.
But did anyone actually hear it?
That's a chilling detail.
Yeah.
And I think what's really concerning is that instead of getting help, he was expelled from school. Imagine the impact of that.
Yeah.
A kid who's already having these dark thoughts is now isolated from his peers, labeled as a problem.
Yeah.
He ends up bouncing around from a pupil referral unit to 2 different specialist providers.
Okay.
And his obsession with violence just seems to grow.
Hold on, wait, the pupil referral unit.
Yeah.
What is that?
Basically, it's a school for kids who've been expelled from mainstream education. The goal is to provide support and help them get back on track.
Right.
But in Axel's case, it doesn't seem like the system really worked for him.
So he's in these alternative settings.
Right.
And things still escalate.
Yeah.
Before the Christmas break that same year,
wow,
he attacks another student at his old school with a hockey stick.
Oh, gosh.
Breaks the kid's wrist. He gets arrested for assault and carrying a knife.
He's 13.
Yeah, 13 years old.
With a criminal record already. This is a kid screaming for help, isn't it?
It really seems like it.
Yeah.
And it's not just the actions themselves.
Right.
It's the honesty about it.
Right.
He openly admits that he wanted to use the knife.
Gosh.
There's this chilling lack of understanding of the consequences.
Right.
Almost a detachment from reality.
Yeah.
You see this pattern of escalating behavior, and it makes you wonder,
yeah, where were the adults?
Yeah, where were the adults in all of this?
Where was the support system?
Right. And it wasn't just happening in the real world.
Yeah.
He was deep into some disturbing stuff online, too.
Okay.
Gruesome content.
Right.
Researching mass shooting. Even expressing admiration for Gaddafi. This all gets flagged to prevent, the UK's anti-radicalization program.
Right.
He was even interviewed by them.
Okay.
But his case wasn't escalated because he didn't seem to have a clear ideology.
So was Prevent looking for a specific profile that Axel didn't fit?
It makes you wonder.
Like, did they miss the forest for the trees?
Yeah.
They were so focused on ideology that maybe they missed the core issue, which was this deeply troubled kid, fascinated by violence.
So they kind of dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And what happens next? Things get worse. Lockdown happens.
Yeah.
And Axel becomes even more isolated.
Right.
Spending hours and hours online.
Oh, gosh.
And this is where he dives into some really dangerous territory.
So this isolation seems to have really been a catalyst.
Yeah.
He downloads an Al-Qaeda training manual multiple times, and he even uses it to try and make ricin poison in his bedroom.
Rice poison.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
That's scary.
Think about the psychological impact of that kind of content on an already vulnerable mind.
Right. I mean, what needs are being met by this fascination with violence and extremism?
Yeah, that's the question.
Okay, so we've got a kid making ricin in his bedroom.
Right.
He's clearly spiraling.
Yeah.
he gets flagged to prevent 2 more times for researching the London Bridge attack.
Okay.
And again, expressing admiration for Gaddafi.
Still no intervention, though. This points to a potential communication breakdown.
Yeah.
Did communicate these concerns to local police?
It seems like they didn't.
Was there a disconnect
Right.
between the perceived threat level and the reality of his actions?
Yeah, maybe they just weren't talking to each other.
Right, exactly.
It's crazy. So it's like everyone knew something was wrong, but no one was putting all the pieces together.
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Meanwhile, Axel's behavior at home is getting even more erratic. Police are called to his house 4 times in a 6-month period. And it wasn't just like, minor disturbances.
Right.
In one incident, he's found on a bus with a knife, refusing to pay the fare.
Okay.
And he tells the officers that he wants to stab someone so that they'll confiscate his phone. Yeah, and delete some embarrassing videos that he can't access.
So he wanted to stab someone just to get his phone taken away.
Yeah, basically.
Talk about distorted thinking.
I know, it's shit.
That's incredible. Yeah. This isn't even about ideology anymore. This is a kid in crisis.
Yeah, but instead of arresting him,
they didn't arrest him?
This is his second potential knife crime. They take him home and tell his mom to keep knives away from him.
So the solution was basically, Mom, hide the sharp things. Unbelievable.
I know, it makes you wonder, what were the police thinking at this point?
Yeah. And
he's expressing a desire to hurt someone.
Right.
And they just leave.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
You've got a troubled young man who's clearly crying out for help, but there are concerns about, criminalizing mental health issues, especially in young people.
Right.
But in this case, did they err too far on the side of caution?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
And all this is happening while his engagement with mental health services is actually deteriorating.
Right.
He hasn't been to school in almost a year.
Oh, wow.
So you've got isolation.
Right.
Increasingly disturbing online activity.
Yeah.
And now a complete disconnect from any kind of support system.
So he's basically falling through the cracks at this point.
Totally.
And, it's not like this was all some secret life.
Right.
The professionals who visited him at home noted his fixation on the Rwandan genocide, which, given his parents' own experiences during that horrific event, it raises another layer of complexity.
It's like a whole other dimension to this.
They even requested a police presence at their meetings with him.
Wow, so everyone involved could see the red flags, this escalating danger.
Yeah.
But nothing truly effective was done. We have this detailed account of what happened.
Yeah.
But we're still left grappling with this why.
Right, what could have been done differently?
Yeah.
How do we prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening in the future?
This case really highlights the limitations of a purely reactive approach.
Right.
What if, instead of waiting for something terrible to happen, we focused on proactive intervention? What if we shifted the focus from managing crises to actually addressing the root causes?
Absolutely. Early intervention is key.
Yeah.
If we can identify and address these issues early on, we have a much better chance of preventing them from escalating into something really tragic.
But that requires a deeper understanding than just checking boxes on a checklist.
Yeah, you can't just have a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
You have to really understand what's going on with each individual.
We've talked a lot about the system's failings.
Yeah.
But what about Axel's parents?
That's a good question.
What was their role in all this?
That's a difficult question.
Yeah.
And one we can't fully answer without more information.
Okay.
But we do know they were aware of his struggles.
Right.
And they requested support.
Right.
The question is, what kind of support did they receive? And was it adequate?
And what about the impact of their own trauma?
Right.
I mean, could their experiences during their Rwandan genocide have played a role in Axel's development? He have been mirroring their own unresolved pain.
That's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
Trauma can be inherited, passed down through generations.
Wow.
It's possible that Axel was grappling with not only his own issues,
Yeah.
but also the echoes of his parents' past.
It's a lot to unpack. But it's important to remember that we're not just dissecting a case file.
Right.
We're talking about real people, real lives impacted by this tragedy.
You're right. And while Axel will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars, the questions raised by his case will linger long after this episode ends. What can we learn from this?
Yeah.
How can we prevent similar tragedies from happening again?
And it's not just about preventing tragedies.
Right.
It's about ensuring that young people who are struggling get the support they need to thrive. What would effective intervention have looked like in Axel's case? What could have changed the trajectory of his life?
That's something I think we should explore further.
Okay.
We've talked about the system's failings,
Right.
but what about the potential solutions?
So we've seen where the system failed Axel, but what could have been done differently? What does effective intervention actually look like?
Well, it's not about having all the answers right away.
Right.
It's about asking the right questions early on.
Yeah.
Instead of just focusing on a potential act of terrorism, what if they had dug a little deeper into the reasons behind his fascination with violence?
Okay.
Was it a cry for help?
Right.
A way of coping with some sort of trauma?
Yeah.
Understanding that root cause could lead to a much more tailored approach. And it's not just about mental health professionals either.
Right.
This is where schools and families come in.
Oh.
Imagine if teachers had the training to spot the warning signs.
Okay.
Not just, disruptive behavior, but the underlying pain.
Mm-hmm.
And if parents felt empowered to seek help without stigma,
Right.
knowing that there were resources available.
It sounds like we're talking about a whole culture shift.
Yeah,
Not just tweaking the existing system.
you're right. It's a big task. But think about it this way. What if, instead of being expelled,
Mm-hmm.
Axel had been connected with a mentor?
Okay.
Someone who understood his struggles and could guide him?
Yeah.
What if his family had access to therapy? That addressed the generational trauma of the Rwandan genocide.
Oh.
These are the kinds of interventions that could have made a real difference.
It makes you wonder how many other Axels are out there.
Yeah.
Slipping through the cracks.
And that's why this case is so important.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about our systems
Right.
and ask ourselves, are we doing enough?
Are we addressing the root causes or just reacting to the symptoms?
Exactly.
So for anyone listening right now, what can we do individually
Yeah.
to make a difference?
First, educate yourself.
Okay.
Understand the warning signs of mental health struggles in young people.
Right.
Second, don't be afraid to have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
If you see something concerning, speak up.
Right.
And finally, advocate for better resources and support systems in your communities.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of this problem,
It is.
but I think it's important to remember
Right.
that even small actions can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Axel's story is a tragedy.
Yeah, it is.
But it doesn't have to be in vain.
That's right.
We can learn from his case, push for change.
And create a world where young people get the help they need before it's too late.
We've covered a lot today,
Yeah, we have.
but hopefully you're walking away with a deeper understanding
Right?
of the complexities of this case, and more importantly, a sense of hope that we can do better, be better
Yeah.
for the Axels of the future.
It's about shifting our mindset from reaction to prevention, from judgment to empathy.